Out with the old and in with the mostly old. That seems to be the mantra of yet another new Taoiseach that no one wanted. Taoiseach Simon Harris. It's going to take some time to get used to that one, and even more time to stop the bile rising when I hear it said. Just what is there to be happy about here? The same faces bar 2 new additions to the cabinet gravy train, clinging on to power at all costs in spite of how deeply unpopular they are with the electorate, and a Taoiseach no one wanted. Have I said that already? Well, I'm going to keep saying it because it's true. Another Taoiseach no one wanted. It's just all a bit depressing, isn't it? Leo Varadkar resigns? That's good. Simon Harris becomes Taoiseach? That's bad. So even when Fine Gael do something right, they do it wrong. I'm not even sure where to begin with this mess. Well, I suppose we should start with the man himself. What political wins does Simon Harris actually have? What has he actually done other than a seemingly endless supply of sound bites? Well, he practically brought down the last government as Minister for Health for a start. During his stint as Minister for Health, he oversaw ever-growing hospital waiting lists that are still growing, the absolutely abhorrent cervical check scandal, and the small matter of signing off on the most expensive hospital in the world that still hasn't been built. He promised that no child would wait longer than 4 months for scoliosis surgery, a promise to children that has been well and truly broken. Oh, and he threatened nurses who were considering strike action with financial penalties. Good stuff. Now, his supporters may well point to the very successful Repeal the 8th campaign, but as I said in my previous video on Varadkar resigning, social change only happens when society wants it to, and no political party can lay claim to any social change. So while he debated very well during the campaign, it was the will of the people that brought about the change. And like Leo before him, he is on record as saying he was against abortion. And like I said about Varadkar, fair enough, if he genuinely changed his mind, I can understand that. But I am the Millennial Cynic after all, and cynicism of political motivations is the bread and butter of being a cynic. I generally want to believe the best in people, but those who chase power, like Simon Harris has done, must always be viewed through a cynical lens. Now, he did manage to survive one motion of no confidence in him as Minister for Health, but when a second was on the horizon, Leo pulled the plug to save Simon's blushes. He then got moved to a brand new department created just for him to keep him busy, and got to be caretaker Minister for Justice for a bit. And now he's Taoiseach. What do you actually have to do to avoid failing upwards in politics in this country? Seriously, does that sound like the CV of someone who is deserving of the top office in the land? Of course not. And yet here we are. And why are we here? Well, there are the bought and paid for independents, but mainly because Fianna Fáil are cowards, that's why. How can we talk about this absolute nonsense without mentioning the duplicitous, power-hungry, desperate Fianna Fáil? They abstained from the first motion of no confidence during the Confidence and Supply government, despite having no confidence in Simon Harris at all. And yes, I'm well aware that the whole premise of that government was that Fianna Fáil would abstain from votes of confidence, but surely everyone involved could see the optics of that, right? Firstly, if you're going to abstain, then keep your mouth shut and abstain, unless you want the world to see how utterly ridiculous you are. And secondly, if you do say you have no confidence and then abstain, the only message it sends is that you have no morals, decency or backbone. Current Minister for Health failure Stephen Donnelly tried to explain away his party's stance as not wanting to trigger a general election as the closing weeks of Brexit were drawing near, which, okay, maybe you could believe that one, but he also said how we need a government in place to oversee the scandals in health. How on earth does that make a lick of sense? Oh, the government is terrible and we have no confidence in how they're handling health, but we'd rather they stayed on to handle the messes they've made in health. Yep, that makes the perfect kind of sense that doesn't. If they had have had the courage of their convictions and the balls to do it, they could have set themselves up nicely for the next election, but they didn't. They failed. Who knows what they would have done had the second motion of no confidence actually gone ahead, but we can guess. And perhaps they were afraid of what their core voters would think of them propping up old rivals in government. Well, if they were afraid of that, they must be absolutely terrified now. Now, I'm not a Fianna Fáil voter, so maybe I'm wrong on this, but how can any long-time Fianna Fáil voter be okay with what they have become? They blatantly lied in the last election. They swore swore they wouldn't go into government with Fine Gael. They lambasted Fine Gael's record on everything they could, and yet when push came to shove, party success and power was more important than their promises to their core voters. And I mean, if they lie to their core, it doesn't bode well for the rest of us, does it? They sold out whatever morals they had left in order to ensure that Micheál Martin avoided the embarrassment of becoming the first Fianna Fáil leader to fail to become Taoiseach. And so here we are, a Fianna Fáil who have lost whatever identity they thought they had, and who are now merely Fine Gael light. A Fianna Fáil who are so afraid of the electorate that they'd rather vote yet another Fine Gael TD, and one that they had no confidence in at that, into the highest office in the land, instead of facing the people at the polls. It's pathetic, isn't it? Cowardly, power-hungry sellouts. Time should be called on this objective failure of a government, and Leo Varadkar resigning was the perfect time to do it. But now we have to endure Soundbite Simon and his hollow, empty promises to fix the problems in the country that his own party caused. A salient point that he conveniently leaves out when rallying the Fine Gael troops. We have to suffer through the spin and soundbites for as long as this government can continue to lumber on, all while those at the top fill their boots and their egos. He didn't even have the decency to shake up the cabinet. Failures in every department, but nah, that'll do. So much for the Taoiseach for all who will listen. Can he just not see the failures being one himself? Or is he too afraid or too weak to ruffle feathers and step on toes maybe? Perhaps he is well aware of how tenuous and fleeting his ascent to the top really is, and doesn't want to cut it any shorter. Either way, we lose. And no, there is no constitutional necessity to call an election right now, but this level of 2 fingers up to the electorate is beyond insulting at this stage. They are just full on ignoring the will and wants of the people to cling on to power and achieve their own selfish ambitions. I can't think of a word strong enough to capture my disdain towards this whole shit show. Soundbite Simon Harris, the Taoiseach for all. Christ almighty. So what do you think? Am I being too harsh on our new leader? Will he actually shake things up and re-energise Fine Gael? Have I got it wrong about Fianna Fáil? Or is my bleak outlook on this absolute shit show depressingly accurate? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified of new content. If you'd like to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee or a super thanks, which is greatly appreciated. And a huge thank you to those of you that already have. You can also follow me on Twitter. Until next time, slán go fóill.